Powered by Go-Goat Sports in partnership with TSN Season 4, and this is Episode 17 of the Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. Joining us today, Toronto Maple Leafs former general manager, Vancouver Canucks former general manager, Dave Nonis. And this could be a repeat performance. Maybe
we'll see.
A couple
we'll see
times
how
a
he
month.
does. We'll see how he does. I think we got to grill him on it.
I'm with you, man. I listened to Dave on Overdrive in Toronto recently. And, as a general manager sitting in the big chair, often he seemed conservative, right? He wasn't the bombastic Brian Burke type, and he followed in the footsteps of Brian Burke basically everywhere, in Vancouver and Toronto, certainly. But he was engaging. He was to the point. He had a good sense of humor. So let's see if we can drag him in the mud here on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Headlines, Ray, once again this season, presented by our good pals at Boston Pizza. Had some Boston Pizza on the weekend, remember? We talked about
Is that where you guys ended up?
Clear weekend. No. Uber Eats. I went that route instead, but ordered a little pie. The Meteor, it's my go-to, or the Canadian, but they're kind of one and the same, so I go to the Meteor. All right, here are our headlines. Where do you want to start?
Good stuff.
Devils Oilers?
Oh, yeah.
Devils Oilers.
Yep.
I mean, it makes sense. We start with the New Jersey Devils, the hottest team in hockey right now. 13th straight win, and they beat a pretty good Edmonton Oilers team. But I keep getting asked about this, and I'm sure you do too. How do they continue to do it? And I'm like, well, their goaltending's pretty good right now. It's at least average, slightly above. Their defense, as Ken Danico on the podcast a couple of weeks ago said, is really good. And by the way, they've got guys who are putting the puck in the net on a consistent basis up front. That sounds like the ingredients for a successful recipe.
Yeah, so let's go back just to last year when everybody felt like the Devils were going to make a jump. Like was going to be the year that they were getting a little better. They spent to get Dougie Hamilton. Well, they lose Hamilton for much of the year. They use 7 goalies. What are the chances you can even find 7 goalies?
Yeah. Hard.
The answer is almost impossible. So their year implodes. I did them second game of the year it was their opener in Philadelphia. They lost. And Nico Hischier wasn't in the lineup. And my view watching them was, wow, they're pretty small. Like up front, they're not a big team. And Philly beat them. And they didn't play particularly well. And then they lost a couple more. They were 0-3. And I was like, ooh, boy, maybe they aren't going to be big enough. And then they won 13 in a row. And so, a couple things in there. Vitek Vanacek from Washington, who they got in a trade and then signed. He's been terrific. He's given them what you said, Dregs, slightly above average NHL goaltending, which they haven't had forever. Yeah. And so they've been fine there. They score like crazy. They're so fast. And now they got 3 guys over 20 points. Jesper Bratt, who's going to make a boatload of money. 1 year, $5.4 million deal he signed in the summer. Hughes is over 20. Jack Hughes over 20 points. And Nico Hischier is over 20 points. If Hischier stays healthy, which he has had trouble with in the past, he might be the center point of that they need their captain in that lineup. And, man, they're big on D, and they're good. I think they've already clinched a playoff spot.
Yeah.
They got 32 points. If they got to get to 95, they need 63 points in 60 games. They're going to get that.
Yeah. Look, and you and I know Tom Fitzgerald, the GM, pretty well. Fitzy's a good man. He's hungry, super competitive, shocking to no one. If he finds something inside that lineup that he feels he needs, he's going to find it, right? Like, that's the messaging that we're getting, in the media that cover it that closely, right? Is the undercurrent. Like, he's not intoxicated by a 13-game run here. He's just looking at a team that's come together very quickly. And as long as the age dynamic is there, the fit is there, he's going to find a way to acquire the pieces that make this team that much better.
I just thought of something. You said, they've come together really quickly. I kind of think of it about like having a baby. Like when the baby comes, it's really sudden. But it took 9 bloody months for
fair enough.
For the baby to incubate.
Yeah, and so it wasn't that quick.
I mean, the Devils missed the playoffs. Well, they missed 8-9 years in a row, something like that. They missed for most of a decade. And then it's all come together and bam. And you're like, look at most of us, me for sure, thought it was a year away. No, maybe not.
Okay. Why don't we rapid fire some of the individual stuff that's going around? Because there are some players that, let's start with the big boys here, all right? Out of respect. Patrice Bergeron, 1,000 points in 1,235 NHL games. But you know what the stat is in the incredible career of Patrice Bergeron that just leaps off the page for me?
Which one?
409 goals.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
Why does that matter?
Outrageous. I told him the other night, and I was doing a game. I said, geez, I thought you were going to retire, and I was kind of hoping you were because you were at 407. And I said, and I wanted you to stay there. And I knew that if you came back, you were going to dust me. And he's so humble and kind of laughed and giggled or whatever. And then, man, if I could come back as any player, that's the guy. I mean, I'd like to be David Pastrnak too, because that's amazing. But I mean, look at the career that Bergeron's had every step of the way.
Yeah.
We forget that he missed almost a year with a concussion at a time when nobody had any real thought of how somebody was going to come back. Yeah. Like his career was in danger. You know what was cool last night, Dregs? When Marchand scored, did you see how happy they were? Like that puck hit the back of the net. That puck hit the back of the net, and Marchand was jumping on top of Bergeron. Like it, I just loved seeing how happy they were for him. It's a fourth Bruin in history to have 1,000 points with that team and all with that team. I think he's an amazing player, and congratulations to him.
The man oozes class, and that's through tough times too. We saw him recently handle from a dressing room perspective, everything that went into the decision to sign Mitch Marner, right? So
you know what, Dregs, I'm going to tag it with this. I never met nor saw Jean Beliveau, but people talk about Jean Beliveau in a different way.
The presence,
and I think that's presence, class, demeanor, play, and I that's how from our generation, that's what I think of Patrice Bergeron as.
All right. Evgeny Malkin, 1,000 games with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and what a touching moment. I mean, you can reflect on his career, which has been brilliant, and he too has faced tough times with injury, et cetera. But for the Penguins to bring in Nikita, Evgeny Malkin's son, to announce the starting lineup, I got to tell you, man, I'm getting soft in my old age, but I watched that clip probably 3, 4, 5 times, and each time, and maybe it's because of how emotional Gino was, right? But it brings a tear to my eye, and then to see the little guy and his dad embrace after he announces the starting lineup. I just don't think teams get enough credit for the good things that they do, and credit to club and NHL marketing for pulling the curtain back and allowing us inside the room to see these things as a media and fan base.
Yeah, I loved it when he came in there. He's I think for most of Malkin's career, he's appeared pretty closed off, pretty tight, only open with his teammates, the people that he trusts. But that's changed kind of as, we've seen a little bit more of his humor. And again, it's probably a lot with the team and Malkin allowing that stuff to, maybe to be out into the public sphere a little bit more. But, I don't know. It struck me too that just how happy and emotional he was with his boy, like it's almost like he couldn't let him go. And then I also loved when the guys, it looked like a choreographed thing, but all the guys were following Malkin's routine out on the ice in warm up. I just thought it was hilarious. And he got a big chuckle out of it.
Synchronization, man, like to a T. Now, granted, some of them, Sidney Crosby has seen it 1,000 times.
Right.
So I guess he's okay with it, but they were all just so perfectly in sync. It was terrific. Quick thought on 2 players who, let's steal Jack Hughes' term, are on haters right now, right?
I think they're doing okay.
Yeah, they're doing okay.
No, that's what Jack said. I think they're doing okay.
Yeah. So Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs is riding a 13-game point streak. So he got a point in that overtime loss to the Islanders on Monday night. And Jason Robertson, the Dallas Stars, people are tweeting about it as if we don't know who he is. We know who Jason Robertson is, but in fairness, if it's Robertson in Toronto and it's Marner in Dallas, we're probably talking a lot more about Jason Robertson in Toronto or a Canadian market. He is going somewhat under the radar, which is just flat out wrong.
He is. Every time I look at Jason Robertson now, I think of what Rick Bowness, who was the Dallas coach, now the Winnipeg coach, told me last year. We were doing a Dallas game, and I was getting a little information. I'm like, hey, you know what? I like to try and compare players of today to somebody from the past so that older generation can make a comparison. Like, who am I looking at here? And he thought for a second, and he goes, Luc Robitaille. And I was like, really? He goes, the puck's always on his stick around the net. He's never really going to beat anybody in a skating race, but he gets to where he needs to go. He's strong on the puck, and he can finish. And so I don't know that Luc ever became the guy that everybody talked about. And he scored 60 goals, right? It's not like he fell off a turnip truck. And so maybe that's going to be the type of player Robertson is, but 12 goals on his 12-game streak. He got 2 last night in their 3-2 overtime loss to Colorado. I'm fascinated with guys that can do this, that their skill set maybe isn't so definable, yet it's different than everybody else. And I mean, this is a great run that he's on.
Let's wrap up headlines with this. We've got Dave Nonis, former general manager, who's going to step in. So he'll give us some insight into the thinking, as many clubs now are at the 20-game mark or approaching the 20-game mark. So the Ottawa Senators lose to the San Jose Sharks. Ottawa's now 1-5-1 on the road, Ray, this season. Cam Talbot is a tough start. He allows 3 goals on 7 shots. So that forces DJ Smith to pull his goalie for a second straight game. We've talked a lot on the podcast and in mainstream media about what's going on in Vancouver. So whether we drill down with Nonis on the specifics of those two clubs, I'm more interested in how you go through that process of making the decision when I just feel like I got to make a deal or I got to make a change. So does it feel like... We know what it feels like around Vancouver because we've talked ad nauseum about it. But what about Ottawa? Are you starting to get that feeling like something has got to give there?
Well, again, Dave would be best to ask this, because to me it feels like something does have to change, except everybody got so excited about the summer and the signings and the players coming in, and rarely, I've used this example before, in baseball, they say teams win the winter. Yeah. In the off-season meetings, they rarely win the regular season. They just don't. I don't know why. Everything lined up in Ottawa so well, and they're like, if they could get another defenseman. Well, we're seeing it's not that easy to go get another defenseman, at least one that can help you. And so they get stuck a little bit. And I would say you have to know where you are, because you can't look at what every other team does. 3 weeks ago, the St. Louis Blues had lost 8 games in a row. And they're saying, should Doug Armstrong break up the team? Well, now they've won 7 in a row. Right. So they were either really bad or now they're really good, or they're somewhere in the middle. And they've got to figure that out in Ottawa, because now all this noise about who's buying the team and all that stuff. And in the meantime, your season's getting thrown in the ditch.
Yeah.
It's a hard place to be. They're just not there yet. I mean, the reality is they're not quite good enough yet.
Those are your headlines. Thanks again to Boston Pizza. Our interviews on Ray and Dregs this year are brought to you by our friends at Canadian Club Whiskey, who are asking, are you over beer? Why not try refreshing CC Ginger Ale next time you're having a drink or watching the World Cup or the NFL or the regular season of the National Hockey League? And if you get a chance and you haven't already done so, check out the CC Ginger Ale mixed and ready in a can. Terrific stuff. Hey, thanks for tuning into our YouTube channel. And while you're here, why don't you do us a solid? Hit like and subscribe.
Yeah, you'll get access to all the latest uploads. You can stay updated on the latest news and interviews from the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast.
It only takes a couple of seconds. And from what I'm told, it helps with our algorithm thingamajig. Anyway, we appreciate the support.